Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of From Startup to Sale, a podcast by MSPs for MSPs. Today happens to be September 18th. We are recording for 2 episodes next month where we're going to focus on artificial intelligence. And the goal here is for us to present some information about how MSPs can leverage artificial intelligence to better take care of their clients and to enhance their value to achieve higher valuations. I am thrilled today to have James Allen from PIA. James is the Senior Vice President of Sales at PIA. And we're going to let James introduce himself, and then we'll get more into what PIA does and how it might work for you. James, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Well, pleasure to be here, Jeff, and hello to all of your listeners. So thanks for that introduction. I guess a little bit about myself is I'm not your typical tech guy. I haven't come from the technology industry, I guess, at my roots. Originally, I came across the technology from a close friend of mine. He was starting up an MSP right when we were driving our accounting and investment firm. And he came and knocked on the door one day and said, "Hey, I'd love to start up in your do your IT at your business." So I was like, "Yep, absolutely. Job's yours." And that formed the friendship and then the business bond that we had. And ultimately, when we sold our accounting firm, I really loved what he was doing over there. It sounded very different to the IT professionals that I dealt with in the past. And so I got involved with him and his business. And that was Virtual IT Group, one of the biggest MSPs now in Australia. So that was my start of my journey into the MSP space. And then, going from, that MSP, I think it was about 20 people when I first got involved there. Now it's, well over 250, 300 people. And then that's where we spun PIA out of, the AI and automation platform that you know us for today. And so that's a bit of my background and my journey coming from the investment space now into the software and IT sales space.
Was which system was Virtual IT Group using? Were you guys ConnectWise or Autotask or?
Yeah, so early in our piece, when I first got there, we were using VMS, and then we transitioned over to ConnectWise as we grew, and we really saw rapid growth at the MSP. So we really outgrew VMS as it was in that space in that time, and moved over full holistic PSA in ConnectWise to really take it to the next level.
And was PIA originated while you guys were working for Virtual IT Group? You started developing this technology there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, how it came about was, we were very much a metrics-driven MSP. We, like I said, had a rapid growth, in the space of 6 years. I believe we acquired about 14 to 16 different companies and grew very strong organically. I was running sales and growth there for a number of years. And the challenge that we had when we were growing was, and I think it's the same with most MSPs out there that are listening, is every time we grow our endpoints, revenue top line, we're throwing bodies at the help desk, and we saw it to be very inefficient. We looked in market for some help, some assistance in this space around automation. And at the time, there really wasn't anything that was suited to MSPs. So we had a couple of really red hot developers on staff, and we threw them a challenge, was how do we make this help desk, more efficient, more scalable to deliver the excellent service that we wanted, but we were just struggling to deliver. So that's where it all started. And, a couple of years in development and, testing and validating, they came out and said, "Hey, look, we've got something that we feel like it's going to add some value here and solve some of this problem." And it was pretty phenomenal what they'd done. So they basically built a small language model within the MSP to train up tickets and read all the tickets that were coming through. And that model would identify where the low-hanging fruit was. So those repetitive tickets that were coming through and bogging down the help desk, password resets, onboardings and offboardings, quickly identified those tickets, and they started to automate them away with either like PowerShell scripting or API interactions and other forms. And quickly we saw we were onto something, and we were involved in peer groups, a couple of different peer groups. I was personally involved in True Methods with Gary Peaker and the crew. And if you're familiar with how those peer groups operate, it's all about reporting, metrics, accountability, and obviously I love the camaraderie sense of it as well. But every month and every quarter, we turn in our numbers, and they would see them and say, what the heck is going on down there? How are you guys doing this? What you're doing? They saw our tickets per tech per day, our REM, our first call resolution rates, our endpoint per tech ratios, and ultimately it was impacting the key metric that we all measure as MSPs, our EBITDA. And that was big. And when they saw those numbers changing dramatically, they're like, how do we get involved in this? And that was effectively the beta program really kicking off into gear. And that's when we knew we had something. And, after going to that MVP phase of the product, we saw it was viable, and we spun it off as a completely separate entity and organization to go and, run its race and go to market, take it there.
What year was that, and how many clients have you guys picked up since then?
Yeah, so that was, we've just tipped over the 2-year mark in market. And we've served well over 250 partners that have come onto the platform in that space, in that space of time.
So you mentioned the term metrics, and maturity level is an interesting concept when it comes to MSPs. And the only way to understand how mature your company is through metrics. What are the key metrics that you think are important that MSPs pay attention to? Are there any that are specifically overlooked by most MSPs? And how might PIA help in some of those areas?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeff. And I think I was a little bit spoiled with my MSP experience, because when I was working at Virtual IT Group, like I said, we were in that peer group, and the peers in that I was talking to professionally, they were all A players within the space. So, we were always talking about those metrics I talked about, like REM, first call res, tickets per tech per day, endpoint per tech ratios. And we were talking about them, in a very fluid way, and benchmarking each other's performance against those, and helping each other pull different levers in the business to make a big difference down the line. Now coming over into the PIA space, I've spoken to hundreds of MSPs out there in the community since we've started, and it's that adage, like, not all MSPs are created equally, right? So this is what I'm getting at. I think I was a little bit spoiled talking to that group of people, because the landscape, as you would be aware, is very different. You've got all sorts of stages of people's journeys in their MSP, from startup, and I like your title, startup to sale. You've got the startups, you've got the lifestyle businesses, up to the big platforms. And when I start talking to these MSPs about their metrics, some of them don't have them as dialed in as the other MSPs. So it's a great learning experience for me, but also for other MSPs, when we start to really dive into some of the levers that are going to be making a difference and an impact to their bottom line, which is the big one that everyone's focused on, obviously, is that profitability, the EBITDA. So that's a core one. One metric that I used to love measuring was the endpoint per tech ratio. So how many clients can I service out there in my business versus how many technicians on the help desk do I need? And that one is key, because it really comes down to that profitability. Because as we know, as MSPs, the biggest cost center in a business is the help desk. So if I can make that ratio as big as possible, it means that my bottom line is going to be, it's going to be growing. And I know that there's some outliers in market where they're specifically focused on a tech stack, and they can scale that endpoint per tech ratio really nicely. But, the truth is a lot of MSPs, our one absolutely was one of them. We called ourselves a Frankenstein. There was just so many different client environments in there. We'd acquired so many different types of businesses. And it was, as standard as you can get in terms of that endpoint per tech ratio. In market, I'm seeing anywhere from like 160 up to 260 being pretty standard.
So that's 160 to 260 endpoints per tech if you're running an internal help desk.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And talking to, like I said, talking to a few hundred MSPs over the last couple of years, that's pretty standard to what I'm seeing in market.
And are you getting pushback from MSPs? What type? Of course, you're getting pushback. Change is difficult. What type of pushback do you get when you talk about what PIA can do from some of these smaller MSPs who are not necessarily, as you say, dialed into the metrics that they should be dialed into?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think, initially the pushback that we get is, timing. It's not the right time. We've got too much stuff to focus on. This AI stuff sounds great. Automation sounds great. But, we're really focused on, driving our business and getting on new clients and fixing up what we've got internally. So that's certainly, timing is always going to be a factor for MSPs. I like the saying, 20 years ago was a great time to plant a tree, but now's a great time as well. So, MSPs, there's always a project going on. We're basically building the car as we're driving it down the road. So it's a challenge that a lot of MSPs face. But to overcome it, I'm seeing a lot more MSPs, adopting that EOS sort of mentality. They're having these quarterly rocks, that they're driving these sorts of initiatives. So it's great when the community's coming together, and you can see that at the different events that we go to, that they're sharing these types of methodologies and strategies to prioritize different elements of the business and advancing them all forward at the same time.
All right. I'm going to ask you one technical question, since you said you weren't technical, and that is, how does PIA interface with the PSA that the MSP is using?
Yeah, so the interface with the PSA, that's our core integration. So we've got a belief here at PIA that everything that an MSP does should be ticket centric. So that's our core focus, and our core integration is around the ticketing system. So the whole idea and philosophy around PIA is, how can we take a ticket from whatever point of entry into that ticketing system and advance it as far as we can with the technology that we've built. So whether that's the AI that's, reading the ticket as it comes through, identifying what's happening here in the ticket, and then making certain decisions based on what it's read, whether that's triaging it, sending it to a board, assigning a user, stamping the type, subtype, and item, or then going and suggesting and running an automation to resolve that ticket. That's our philosophy is take it into the ticketing system and then advance it as far as we can.
And does that happen on-prem at the MSP's site? Or if they're running a ConnectWise instance in the cloud, that happens with integration directly with ConnectWise?
So PIA is a cloud-hosted solution. It's a proper SaaS. It's a full SaaS solution. So we can interact with ticketing systems that are hosted on premise and cloud-based. So it makes no difference. The core integration is going to be the ticketing system.
All right. And of course, everybody at this point is dying to know, how much does all this cost?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. And it's not something that, we hide behind. It's pretty straightforward. There's a couple of different models that you can choose from with PIA. So you can get on board, basically we call it our usage pricing model, and it's a flat fee, it's a platform fee to cover our hosting and expenses, and it starts at $850 a month US, and then you're paying for your usage as you grow. So it's a crawl, walk, run mentality. So the more you use, the more you start to pay over month on month. And ultimately, we want to get people to that unlimited model. So that is an endpoint per dollar per month pricing model. And that's where, depending on the volume of endpoints that we're looking after, it's plus and minus that dollar range, depending on the volume that we look after.
So not particularly expensive given the cost of IT technical support. That's for sure. And so you talked about being in the peer groups and your peers being stunned at your EBITDA. Give me an idea about what sort of improvement you saw as you began to bring this technology online.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were at our MSP, we were debt funded. Okay, so a little bit different to the main method of funding over here in the States, where it's a lot of it's getting PE money to come in. When you're going to the bank for funding, they will give you cash, but there's certain restrictions around that. And the big one is you need to get that EBITDA back up to a certain level before they'll go again. So that was a big focus on our strategy. And we saw really quickly when we were doing an acquisition, that dip in EBITDA growth could take a long time, could take 6, 12, 18 months. Ultimately, what you're planning to do when you're doing an acquisition is get economies of scale really quickly. You know, I want the technicians over in this new MSP on that help desk to start doing tickets over here on these clients to get the economies of scale. Now, that doesn't happen straight away for a couple of reasons. You know, there's the obvious one about the technology, integrating the technologies across the multiple organizations. And it doesn't matter if we both use the same ticketing system. You know, I could have my type, subtype, and item set up completely different to the way that you've got it set up over there. Or the client environments I haven't got access to, or I haven't got the background knowledge. You know, that's another one, a struggle where you're going to come up against. But the other challenge is integrating the people. So, you know, it's that tribal knowledge that is in people's heads that, you know, I need to go and tap Tony on the shoulder to find out how to get into that server or that environment. So integrating that and creating the economies of scale was a challenge. And that was a big reason why we built PIA, to help fast track a lot of that. Because what happens when we inject the automation into the platform, your ticketing system, it doesn't matter where you are in the country or the world. If a ticket comes in and you open it up, PIA is going to pop up and say, hey, I can help you with this. Would you like me to automate that? Because it's PIA that knows how that environment's set up. It's PIA that knows that this is a cloud environment that I'm working on, and this is the workflow that I need to go and, you know, reset that password or create a new user. So it gave us the really quick ability to scale and grow and bring that EBITDA dip really far forward in the matter of, you know, in some cases 3 months. And then we'd go again, and we'd go again, and we'd go again. And that was how we were able to go from 2 acquisitions to 16 acquisitions in 6 or 7 years.
That's an amazing acquisition rate for sure. So I'm bringing on a new client. Tell me how that interfaces with PIA and how we get all this stuff automated so that my my performance is better.
Yeah, so I mean, bringing on a new client is quite simple, and we've made it that way for a reason. So coming from an MSP, we knew that one of the challenges of bringing on new tools and software into the MSP was implementation and then also adoption. And the last thing that we wanted to do was be that shiny ball that, you know, someone goes to a conference, throws it over the fence, and then gets half-baked and not used. So with that in mind, we've got a very rigorous onboarding process that, you know, we dedicate resources to getting you up and running. I had a chat with one of our onboarding engineers a couple of last week it was, and he basically said, you know, we onboarded 75 clients at this MSP in the space of 3 days. So we can get our clients up and running really quickly. And then get them productive and using the tool and the technology, you know, in a very short window, because it's all about getting that return on investment. If you can get the quick wins early in the piece, you're going to go on and get the success. And we've built the platform that, like I said, it's out of the box. We knew most MSPs out there, they don't have dedicated automation engineers or developers on staff, quite frankly, to go and build all of these workflows and automations. So that's why PIA is out of the box. You know, we've got 60 plus different tickets that we're resolving on the help desk across multiple environments that the MSP can plug in and start using straight away without a line of code required from the MSP.
So when an MSP onboards a new client, basically they go in and they can take a look at these 60 different workflows. They've got some kind of screen where they enter information, and then those workflows are basically enabled so that any tech across the MSP should be able to initiate a workflow and get something done. Is that correct?
Exactly, yeah. So in the backend system, there's a global configuration, and effectively you're selecting the mode of the new client that, you know, in your case, that you just described, MSP wins a business, new client comes on board, we select the mode, so it's a cloud hybrid environment, and now all of the cloud hybrid environments, automations that we've got in the catalog will become activated. So then it's just a matter of just tweaking the little bits and pieces across each automation, and you're up and running in the matter of minutes.
Are the automations categorized? Do you have categories of automations, or are they really all individualized?
No, so we adopted, you know, the Pareto principle when we started looking at this problem. So what was 20% of the tickets that were coming in, that was going to give us 80% of the impact. And we started there. And, you know, when we first went to market, we only had about a dozen different tickets that we were solving for. Now there's over 60. And we've expanded, you know, from the level 1, level 2 tickets, you know, and we're going outwards. So we still feel like there's a number of tickets that we can solve for on the help desk. Right now, when we talk to our partners, they're solving anywhere between, you know, 20 and 45% of the tickets coming in the service request with our automation. So we've got a mission to you know, take that to 50, 60, 80% of the tickets. Again, because we know that if we can free up that time on the help desk, we're going to allow more time back into the things that they want to do in terms of proactive services, projects, you know, value-added services for the rest of the business.
All right, so setting aside password resets, what are some of the most common automations that get run?
Yeah, so we've got a great list. Like I said, there's a few favorites that I see getting ran regularly. The onboarding and offboarding, you know, that's our bread and butter. You know, that's where we basically started. So if you look at the back end of that in our platform, you can see there's over 3,500 lines of code there. It's quite a robust automation and workflow that people get out of the box. But things like, you know, change mailbox settings, calendar permissions, you know, printer troubleshooting, VPN troubleshooting and installs, out of office requests, you know, common things that we're getting on the day-to-day that, you know, we can take and just get right out of the purview of our help desk technicians. And in fact, I'm getting a lot of reports coming back from our partners saying that they give PIA to the lowest common denominator on the help desk. So we've got interns and dispatchers now closing out dozens of tickets a day. So, you know, I had a chat to one of our partners a couple of weeks ago, and they've got a dispatcher there that closes between 40 and 50 tickets out a day because she's able to pick them up as they come in and knows that it's a PIA serviceable ticket and just runs the workflow on them straight away, closes them out.
Wow, doesn't even have to go to a tech.
Doesn't even have to go to a tech. Yeah, and that's our engineer assist mode that we built, you know, as our initial launch to market. What's exciting our partners now? Last year we launched smart forms. So now that's the ability to give the power of automation over to your clients. So imagine a client of an MSP completes a form for an onboarding, which a lot of clients are already doing. The big difference between our forms and the traditional forms that, you know, they're used to filling out is because of the integrations that we've got, is our form is actively going out into the client's environment in real time and pulling in all the information as the client's going down. So if they want to start a new user, put them in the accounting group, all of those groups and permissions are coming through the shared mailboxes. And when they hit submit, not only does a ticket get created in the ticketing system, but P has gone away and gone and done all of that work before it even gets there, including going and getting a license. So that's what we're calling zero-touch automations, where clients can effectively complete their own tickets without a technician even opening up a ticket on the help desk.
Wow, I remember back in my day as an MSP, we had picked up Kurion as a vendor, and their claim to fame was the ability to onboard in complex environments, especially hospitals where you often have multiple levels of approval and multiple levels of authorization in different applications. So the ability for a customer to be able to fill out a form and get most of that done, that's pretty spectacular. Do you get pushback from MSPs who are primarily healthcare, where things do get a little bit more complex? Where do you see problems?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. And yeah, we do work with a couple of large MSPs that are healthcare focused. That's their niche. So we work really closely with them because, as you just referred to, there's a lot of line of business applications that they have to support or understand in their client's environment. And to your point around the approvers piece, again, coming from an MSP, we knew this was a thing. So in our workflows, innately, we've got an approval process that you can plug into. So whether it's a technician, completing a workflow, if there's an approval process that you have at your MSP, P can adhere to that, reach out to the right people within that client, get the approval, come back, and then continue on with the workflow. So we've tried to be as malleable to the MSP's processes as we can, because we know not every MSP is the same, right? In fact, they're vastly different. So when you look at the flexibility and the creativity that we can put in place, you'll find that it's very much MSP centric.
So you had mentioned, so backing up, this sounds amazing. It makes me wish I was still an MSP a little bit, not a whole lot, but you had mentioned one of the key metrics being the number of technicians that you have per endpoint, with averages across the industry, about 200 endpoints per technician. Where you have PIA installed, and virtual IT group is probably a great example, what does that ratio look like now?
Yeah, so I mean, this is the interesting place that I believe, we're all moving as a community. We see, and there's some great stories on our YouTube channel. Peter Noble, he gave a great video on our YouTube channel there, where he talks about, going through some turmoil in his business. And I'm not talking out of school, because he's got it there, and he talks deeply about the story, where they were faced with some big challenges. And it was at a time where most MSPs would have started to divest themselves from different applications and software. But he could see the power of PIA and what it was going to do to his business. So he partnered with us. And he basically got his business into the black in the space of a few months. And his endpoint per tech ratio, and he's a True Methods guy as well, so we love talking about these metrics together. But he took his business from 200 endpoints per tech, pushing 300 to 350 within the space of less than 12 months. So you start to now extrapolate the impact that has on the bottom line EBITDA. It's significant, because too often, we've been throwing bodies at the help desk as we grow. So as our top line revenue grows, our expenses track really in that linear fashion behind it. So EBITDA just flatlines. And we might be doing like 8, 10, 12% EBITDA, 15% on the good MSPs. And it always confuses me when we go to these events. We go to these big events, and you can get these buttons on your lanyard that you clip on. And it's, I'm a 50-person MSP, I'm a 150-person MSP, or I'm a 250-person MSP. And to me, that number is irrelevant. What you should be clipping on your lanyard is, I'm a 20% EBITDA MSP, or I'm a 30% EBITDA MSP. I don't care how many people you've got working for you. If you're 30% EBITDA, man, you are a hero of mine, and I'm a big fan.
Absolutely. And when it comes to exit strategy, your EBITDA percentage is critically important. Your overall maturity level makes a difference. The processes you have in place make a difference. The fit with the company that's buying you makes a difference. But you will get a higher multiple at a 30% EBITDA level than you will at a 20% EBITDA level, than you will at a 10% EBITDA level. It makes a big difference in terms of how much somebody is willing to pay for you. And as hopefully our listeners recognize at this point, we're all about making you a little bit more profitable at the end of the day and optimizing whatever sort of exit strategy you may have when the time comes to exit. James, this is amazing stuff. Where do you see PIA going? What's the roadmap look like?
So this is where things start to get real exciting for me and the team here at PIA. So earlier this year, we brought on board Joe Todd as CEO. So he's been at the helm now for about 9 months. And if you're familiar with his pedigree, he's basically been involved in these big SaaS and IT companies for a long time. Helped run up ConnectWise, TimesZest, and now we're fortunate to have him here at PIA. So his direction and focus, coupled with the innovation and the entrepreneurship of Christian, our founder, is really getting us laser focused and inch wide, mile deep on that help desk. We recognize that we've got so much still to do and so much more value that we can add at the MSP help desk space. We've really got that in our sights. So what that means from a roadmap perspective is you're going to see us come out very shortly before IT Nation, our big announcements around our AI and triage. What we've done there, we've had it in the platform for about 12 to 18 months. It's going to take a whole new look and go to a whole new level. The amount of automations that we're doing, the types of integrations that we can do, and just where we can advance and create those efficiencies in and around that help desk. I know with automation, everyone gets excited and they want to try and automate everything, and it's great. There's a lot that we can do in a business, from a business process perspective and an automation perspective. But we've been really laser focused, inch wide, mile deep, like I said, on creating the efficiencies and the value at the help desk level.
All right. We've covered a lot. Is there anything else? What have we missed? Have you made any awesome mistakes that you've learned from? I'm big on mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. We've made mistakes. I think any startup that you have on would be lying if they said that they didn't, right?
Indeed.
So, I mean, in the early days, we left a lot of the onboarding in the hands of our MSP partners. Rightly or wrongly, that was the decision that we made at the time. But we saw, like I said at the start, MSPs are busy. Like there's a lot to do in the MSP space. So our onboarding projects and our impact, was not as where we wanted it to be in the early days. So we were seeing half-baked projects that should have taken 3 weeks, took 3 months. That was a big learning for us, a big maturity leap that we had at the business. So over the last 12 to 18 months, we've really refined how we do our onboarding and what we do and what that process looks like. To now the point, when we can take a 10,000 seat MSP, we can onboard them in 3 to 4 weeks. And they're fully functional with all of the automations and the features and benefits of PIA. By week 5, they're out the gate and they're rocking and rolling. That MSP that I'm talking to there, I checked in with their numbers about 3 weeks after they'd onboarded. They'd already automated 750 tickets on the help desk. Now they're 4 or 5 months into their journey. They're consistently automating between 1,500 and 1,600 tickets every month with their automation.
Wow. All right. This is really eye-opening. It's a different world that we're moving into, no question about that. And James, I think I heard you mention something about a special offer for our listeners.
Yeah, so we've actually been running an offer this quarter. It's been the best offer that we've had since we've gone to market. And it finishes at the end of this month. It's a Q3 offer. I'm happy to extend that to anyone that's listening to the podcast for the next 60 days. And to do so, you can just reach out to yourself, to Jeff, and just make mention of this offer. And effectively, it's 50% off of the onboarding fee that we charge, and 25% off of the platform fee. So it's significant reduction there. I think now partners are coming on board. It's like $640 a month to get involved and get all those benefits that we talked about.
A drop in the bucket compared to just one new tech.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's I guess some of the things that we're taskling with as a community at large, because, do we keep going down the path of, hey, we've always done it this way? And the beautiful thing about the leadership team as PAs is we try and challenge the status quo. We don't have to go down the pathway of it's always been done that way. We've always had to hire a body every 200 to 300 endpoints. No, we don't believe that that's the case going forward. And in fact, if you take a more philosophical view of where we're heading in the next 3, 4, 5 years, talking to MSP community, is I don't see us looking and feeling the same way. Already we're seeing the help desk being commoditized. We're offshoring it to other parts of the world, and we're trying to automate it, and the value for MSP, I don't believe is going to be in that help desk. Clients of MSPs, and remember the S in MSP is service, right? We've got to deliver great, spectacular service. So partners of MSPs are going to expect that just to be part of the deal. They don't want to see our MSPs, in my opinion, being IT plumbers, but being more so technology strategists. So how do I advance my client's business with use of technology and add value at that level? That's where I see us going as a community, being that real strategic advisor for our clients, not the IT plumbers that, of the past where we're running around and fixing broken computers. That's obviously going to be part and parcel of the offering, but it's not going to be the core offering that we go to market with.
So really, we take the easy stuff off of the plate of your technology people and allow them to focus on being strategic partners for our clients.
Absolutely. And that's, that was a big shift at our MSP, where we were able to do more strategic advice, the VCIO services, the proactive services. And it really became a self-fulfilling prophecy, because what you saw at the help desk level was tickets were coming in, they were being automated. So it freed up time for our technicians. They were able to go into the environment, proactively fix the environment and stop the noisy tickets coming in. So therefore, less tickets came in. Those tickets that came in, again, were automated, freeing up more time. So it was that self-fulfilling prophecy of, efficiency gains happening internally at not only at the MSP, but also from the client's perspective as well, because they weren't getting those noisy tickets coming through.
All right. Like I said, it's a whole new world that we're looking at. James, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. Be sure to check the show notes. We'll talk about the promo that PIA is offering to our listeners. And this episode, all about AI. Our next episode also will be all about AI, but slightly different perspective. Another tool that you can put in your tool chest to make your staff more productive and to support your clients better. Thanks again for listening. This is another edition of From Startup to Sale, and we look forward to talking to you in a couple of weeks.